Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So as I said, we're gonna start today with the background. So this background is mostly, it looks kind of like a textured wood. So it looks like panels of wood, and I'll show you guys how to do this. The first step is going to be to put some brown paint and some white paint on your palette. So we'll start with those two colors. And as you guys know, if you have been watching my classes, I always give you guys an option to create your own brown. So how you do this is you mix the three primary colors together. So you mix red, yellow, and blue together. And you want to mostly do your yellow, and that will create actually your burnt umber color. So that will create your brown color as you're moving forward. But if you do have your own pre-made brown, which I thankfully do today, you can by all means use that. So we're gonna use brown and some white. And then you're going to use the biggest brush that you guys have. So for me, I like to use a big square brush. This is usually the brush I use for my backgrounds. So with this, what we're going to do is really kind of create some brown streaks and white streaks going on along our painting. So these are going to be vertical brush strokes as we're going up and down our painting. And I'm gonna start with just putting some white paint and some brown paint on my paintbrush, kind of like this.
I'm sorry, you still can't see a thing.
Oh my goodness.
I see old classes, I don't see the current class.
Really?
There's one lady that's just up on my screen. Maybe she's not muted, I don't know.
Let me see here. I'll try to mute everybody one more time. I'm so sorry for this, guys. Okay. All right, let's continue on. I'll try to go pretty slowly in case it does glitch up for some people. So as I said, we're going to continue with the wood today. So what we'll do is we're gonna take some white and some brown on your paintbrush, and we're just going to make some vertical streaks going up and down. So what this will naturally do is mix the colors together. As you can see, the brown and the white are actually mixing on the canvas. And so the next step, what I'm going to do all throughout this background is dip my paint in some brown first, and then make some more dark streaks. And then I'll dip my brush in some white, and I'll continue going down my canvas from left to right. I'm just using some dark brown and some white brush strokes. So as I'm doing this, you can see that my paints aren't really blending together so smoothly. And that's actually what we want. We don't want these colors to blend together perfectly. What we want to do is see these kind of textured lines that I think kind of resemble wood. So we're just going to continue on. I'll put some dark brown paint on my paintbrush and just kind of make some darker streaks. And then I will again put my paintbrush in white, make some whiter streaks. And as I'm doing this, I'm really just blending the colors a little bit. I'm not really making it smooth. I'm not making it blended too terribly much. I'm making sure that we can see some lighter areas and maybe some darker areas too. So I'm just going to continue on with this as we go, as I said, from left to right. And so I'm being sure to cover all parts of my canvas from top to bottom. I want to make sure the whole canvas is filled up. And so as I'm doing this, I'm just rotating between my white and my brown. And I'm just going up and down with the brush strokes, making some really nice wood looking textures here. And if you notice some parts that are a little maybe too streaky for you, what you can do is just go over them with your dry brush. And they will, as you can see, blend a little bit. But of course we don't want to smooth it too terribly much. So it'll look a little bit like wood here. And so I'm just going to finish the background with the same exact technique that we've been doing. So I'm just dipping my brush in brown, making some brush strokes, and then dipping my brush in white. And I'm just going back and forth with these two colors. So I'm just doing brown and then white, and I'm overlapping them a little bit. But I do want to make sure that we can see some white and some brown. So I want to make sure that it's not just one color. So again, I'll take my brown and I'll take my white, and I'm just going to continue on until the entire canvas is covered. And so I am just smoothing out some of these lines here, making sure that I don't have too terribly thick paint, as we spoke a little bit ago with Nancy. You don't want the paint to be too terribly thick. If it's just kind of overlapping that canvas, that's really all you need. And so I'm just smoothing it out a little bit as I get to my ending brush stroke here. Try to hold this so you guys can see it. And I'm just gonna add maybe a little bit of brown on this last area here. Okay. So as I said, I'm just gonna smooth out some of these brush strokes a little bit. I just wanna make sure they are all going from top to bottom. None of them are stuck in the middle. And as you can see, this is actually looking somewhat like wood already, which is wonderful. So once you've completed this full background of this smooth kind of wood, what we'll do is we'll actually use some black paint for this next part. So if you are ready, you can go ahead and get your black paint out. And we'll put some details on this wood before we actually start on our foreground, which is our pumpkins actually. So I'm going to go ahead and set this down so I can get my black paint out. But your wood should look a little bit like this. So a little bit light in some areas, a little bit dark in others, but it's really got this nice streakage going up and down our horizontal canvas. So what we'll do is we will get out our black paint. And if you don't have any black today, what you can do is just mix your three primary colors together and use a lot of blue. So you'll want that red, yellow, and blue paint all mixed together. And you'll want a lot of blue in there. And usually what blue does is actually darkens the whole thing. So even if you've made your burnt umber with the emphasis on yellow, what you can do is just add a whole lot of blue into that, and it will actually create your black, or it should. So I'm going to go ahead and use my black. And for this next part, we will actually need your very tiniest brush. So I have one that is very, very small. I'll show you guys what the point looks like. So I'm going to use one that's really skinny, about like this. And you'll want that for these next details. So, with our black paint, what we'll do is we are going to split this canvas into thirds. And you're going to do that by using 2 black lines. So, this is our canvas at the moment. We have our wood kind of on the whole thing. And what we'll do is we'll create 2 lines. They don't have to be perfectly placed, of course. But I'm going to make mine basically 1/3 in. And then 2/3 in. I am. Yes, I'm going from top to bottom with the black line, and I'm making it as skinny as I can. So I'm trying to actually make it look like the end of a wood board. So it's just separating the wood boards. So basically, I've created 2 black lines, and they really, you can make them as straight as possible, but they don't have to be perfect. This is just the background of the painting, so it will be covering a lot of this up anyway. So as I said, I've created 2 black lines, kind of putting our wood boards into 3. And so now we have a background of 3 wooden planks. And we'll go ahead and put some more details in this as well, but I want to give you guys time to get these lines in. I know sometimes trying to do straight lines is really stressful. So what you can do is, if it's stressing you too much, you can try to use a straight edge, and that should help with the straight lines. Otherwise, honestly, just try to go over it a few times, and with that it should get a little bit straighter. But as I said, we'll be covering most of this up as we continue for the painting, so don't worry if it's not perfect. So I'll give you guys one moment just to create your straight lines, and then the next part we're going to use black still, and we are going to use our tiny brush again. So the next thing we're going to do, now that we have split our wood board into 3 separate planks, we're just going to make some little dots on top of them. This is just going to make it look like there's a fence or maybe a plank behind our pumpkin. So I'm just going to do 3 little dots in the top middle of each plank. So there's 1 here. I'll do another right up here. And then I'll do 1 more on the last plank. So now we have 3 little dots on our wood plank. And so as I said, this kind of makes it look like there's a fence. You can't really tell what's back there, which is great, but it does look like 3 wooden boards, which is the goal. So once you have your 3 dots, we're going to continue to make some details in this wood background. So what I like to do is I'm once again taking my black and my tiny little brush. And what I like to do is try to make these little, they're almost like these little ridges in the wood that you'll see usually in a tree or something like that. And this is really how you do them. I'll show you my technique. I make a little almost half moon C shape. So it'll be about like this. And then what I'll do is just some vertical lines outlining it. So I'm starting from top, I'm going around, and I'm again making some lines to kind of go around that. So this can be really different for each person. It doesn't have to look exactly like that. Actually, mine looks a little bizarre anyway. But this is the general shape of that kind of wooden ridge that is always on trees, always on wooden planks. And I'm doing this with my black, but I might add a little bit of white or brown just around this. So I'll do maybe 1 more line here. And I'm just going to make one of these, maybe on the other side as well, maybe a little bit lower. So again, I'm going to start out with my half moon C. So I'll take this very slowly, very step by step on this one. So we'll do a C, about like that. And then what we do is we outline the C with kind of taller lines. So we'll take maybe 2 lines surrounding it. And then we'll maybe make a few kind of above it, maybe below it a little bit. And this will really create your little crevices in your wood. So again, we have the little C, and then around it are some very kind of shaped lines that outline it. And they're always a little bit more vertical than the C, so they're stretched out a bit. And the next part is just detailing a little bit more in our wood. So I'm just gonna take my black and make some more streaks, just vertical streaks on my wood like this. So these can be kind of all over the place, but you just want to make some vertical streaks in your wood with that black to give it a little more detail. So I'm just kind of giving some more indentations, some more shading. And I'm really just taking my black and making little vertical lines throughout my painting. And so as you can see, I've done a little more up top here. And with this, you can kind of make out maybe some shading on the top of my wood. But otherwise, I'm just kind of having fun with mixing in my black color and my wood board. So I'm doing just a few more of these streaks throughout, just to give this wood a little bit more texture in it. And so again, I'm doing a little bit more shading up top here with my black. So I'm really trying to make this top part of the wood look like it's actually the top of this fence or plank that we've created. So I'll zoom this in a little bit for you so you can see this top portion of the wood has quite a lot of black brush strokes on it. I've done that just to show a little bit more texture on the top rather than in the middle. So I'll give you 1 second to catch up. This is pretty much all of the background that we're going to do. So I'll give you a minute to catch up at this point. And I'll kind of go through the steps that we've done so far, just for anybody catching up or for anybody that's video has gone out and then in again. I'll kind of go through what we've done so far. So what we've done is we've created some light brown and dark brown variation in the background. So basically what we did is we put some brown on our paintbrush and white on our paintbrush, and we just continued to go from left to right with kind of filling in this wood back here. And we've used only thus far vertical brush strokes in this. So it's very different than, you know, an ocean scene or a landscape scene where you want to use a lot of horizontal brush strokes. This one's very much only up and down. So that is our wood, and what we've done is just detailed it a little bit with our black. So we've created 3 planks here by actually only putting in 2 lines. And then we've done just the details in between the boards. So we've done these little C shapes that kind of look like the little crevices that you'll see in wood, and then we've just done some vertical lines and shadows in our wood. So I'll give you guys just 1 minute. We're gonna give this just a little bit of time to dry here, and in the meantime what you can do is get your orange out, because our pumpkins are, as you guys know, they're very orange. So go ahead and either finish this background up. So this is the final that we're doing. So we'll need this base orange. So for the pumpkins, yes, we will need orange. And I'm just gonna give my canvas a little bit of time to dry right here. So if you want to finish up some details, that's great. Otherwise, get out that orange. And if you don't have an orange today, what you'll wanna do is just mix together some red and some yellow. So for my orange, I like to use a whole lot of yellow, actually. So when you're mixing together your orange, keep that in mind that you don't want it to be too much of red in there, or else it'll look like a flame instead of, you know, a pumpkin orange that we're looking for. So give me 1 second. I'm just gonna grab a paper towel and then we'll get started on our pumpkins today. Okay, so I'll show you guys what we have so far. We have our wood. There are 3 wood flanks. And so what I'm gonna do is mix together some orange because I do not have my own orange. So as I said, what I like to do is use a lot of yellow in my orange. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this. My yellow and my red will blend together to make an orange. And I'm just using a teeny tiny bit of red. So as you can see, this is even a lot of red, this ratio here, but it's going to be a lot of yellow mixed with just a little bit of red. And for this, I'm probably just going to use a medium-sized brush. So something not too big, not too small, but something about this size. So I like kind of to use a square brush tip. So I'll mix together my orange. And as you can see, even just a tiny bit of red really makes this orange look a bit too red. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more yellow into my orange. And we'll see what this one looks like. So this is about right, this right here. Nice kind of yellow-orange color that we're looking for. As I said, when you're mixing these colors, it really depends on how much of each color you use. So you want to make sure you're only using maybe a dab of red in there so it doesn't overshadow that yellow. Okay, I'm just going to add a little more and then we should be set to go. Okay, so this is about the color that you're looking for here. Kind of a nice yellow orange. And with this, we are going to start the process of our pumpkins. So with our pumpkins, we are going to make one big one and one pretty small one. So the first one we're going to do is the big one, and this is going to cover about, maybe about half of this space. So it's going to go up above half, the halfway line, and it's going to go a little further than halfway too. So it's going to cover quite a lot of our canvas. And we're going to start with just a circle, so a very easy shape for us, and it does not have to be perfect by any means. It will be about like this. So maybe a little bit bigger than that even. So it's just this outside of the circle. And as you can see, it's off the page. So it's not a full circle. It's maybe just this half of a pie that we're looking at here. And if your black and if your colors below this are mixing a little bit with it, that's okay. Don't get stressed out. They will go over it a bit later. So we have this nice shape here, outlining where our pumpkin is going to be. And as you can see, it's kind of just this corner that this pumpkin is covering. It's not really anything other than that corner area. And you'll want to know that this is really, it's just an arc here. So it's not a full circle. We're not completing the circle. It's just that nice arc. And the next one is going to be a lot smaller right to the side of it. And it's actually going to be a full circle, this one. So I'm just going to make it a bit shorter. It's going to be about like this. So quite a bit smaller than our first one here. So as I said, don't worry if the colors are kind of mixing together. This is just an outline of really the next steps that we have. So this is just the location of where these pumpkins are going to be. So make sure you can see where the lines are. So I'll give you guys just a little bit of time to make these two shapes. We have one just really as an arc here over the corner. And it's very big. It's definitely above the halfway mark for my painting. And it's definitely a little bit to over the halfway mark of my painting horizontally too. So it's taking up a very big space of the painting. And then the smaller pumpkin, the smaller one, is a full circle, as you can see, or mostly a full circle. It's kind of right on the edge, but it's definitely, it's below the halfway mark, and it's also not even reaching halfway as far as our horizontal painting. So it's quite a bit smaller in there. And this pumpkin, as you can see, it takes up a big portion of our canvas. Okay, so for the next step, we're actually going to switch back into our brown color. So for the meantime, I'm just going to set this brush to the side because I know I'm going to use this orange a little bit later as we fill in these shapes. But what I'm going to do is just use our dark brown for the next part. So I'll probably switch to maybe a little bit of a smaller brush. And I'll use my dark brown. If you want to use a black for this next part, it would actually do just fine as well. But I'll probably use this dark brown that I've mixed together. And so I'll give you guys just 1 second to look at these shapes as we mix together our dark brown, or you can use black. And so what we do with our dark brown is we're going to create the stumps to these pumpkins. And so the first part, you're going to start on top of the pumpkin, and you're going to create the stump that goes beneath where the pumpkin top is. So to show this to you, it looks about like this. And it's just a rectangle, really.
I lost you again.
Oh, goodness. Well, I will go slowly so that you guys can catch up as soon as it gets back on me.
I've lost you too.
Oh, goodness. I don't know if it's the connection this time, guys. I think it might be because we have quite a lot of participants today. So maybe that's the reason. So what we'll have to do is work on our technical issues for the next class. But as I said, what you'll want to do is maybe use a dark brown or black for this part, and you'll make our stump that goes above the pumpkin, and also it's going to be below our pumpkin, or below where the top of the pumpkin is, I guess I should say. And so once you have this shape here, it's really just a rectangle that's curved a little bit. you'll want to go ahead and fill it in. So fill in that color or that shape with your dark brown. And it's curved just a little bit over here. And it's quite thick actually. Mine's looking a lot thicker.
Oh no.
Oh no, is it still coming? Not on my screen?
Can't see you at all.
Oh gosh. Have you tried Facebook at all? I know sometimes that works.
I did.
Oh gosh. Well, I'll try to go really oh, good. I'm back. Good, I'm so happy. Okay, so what we'll do is create this first stump here. And then we're going to create the second one as well. So this one is going to very much be the same thing except tilted the other way. So I'm just going to make this tilted. And again, it's just kind of a curved rectangle. So I'm just filling in the shape right now, just making sure it's nice and smooth. Making sure you guys can see it here. And of course, right now, guys, this really doesn't look like two pumpkins. So keep that in mind as you're going through the steps. It's not going to look pretty until the end. So we'll just continue on here. You have your two stumps. And this one for me is much thicker than the other one, but the shapes really don't matter too much. It'll be the pumpkins that really bring this thing to life. Okay. Okay, so if you have your stumps at this point, which is really just, as you can see, two kind of curved rectangles, two curved shapes that are taller than the top line of the pumpkin and also come a little bit into the pumpkin, so a little bit inside that circle. So what we'll do for the next step is get our orange ready. This is the time that we're going to start doing the inside of the pumpkin. And you'll also need your white, so take out that color as well. You'll need your orange that you mix together. And you'll also need your white. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on my palette. I'll put my orange and a little bit of white on here. I'm just going to grab one more palette. Okay. So I have my orange and my white ready to go, and I'm using that same medium-sized brush that I did when we started with the orange. So what we're going to do is actually give this pumpkin some stripes, and I'll show you how to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my orange paint. So I'll take my orange and I'm going to create almost like an orange slice on my pumpkin. I'll show you what I mean. It's basically like an oval. So I'm going to start with my big pumpkin, and right in the middle, I'm going to make this kind of oval stripe in it. So it really looks like an oval with a point here. And so after this, what I'm going to do is mix a little bit of my white in the middle of this so that it looks like a light orange in the middle as I'm filling this shape in that I've created. So as you can see, it looks like a light orange right in the middle of this. So this is the first part of my pumpkin. I've outlined this oval in orange, and then I've filled it in with a light orange, which is really, I've just put some white on my paintbrush and I've mixed it into the middle of this shape that we've created. So I'm going to repeat this little procedure that we're doing on the whole pumpkin. So I'm making sure to blend these colors in, this light orange and dark orange. And I'm just going to continue around the pumpkin. So I'll show you what I mean by this. I'll create around this middle section, I'll create little half moons. So I'm going to create a little half moon around it with my orange. And I'll do the same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of light orange, so a little bit of white on my paintbrush to fill in the shape. So as you can see, I'm just blending this light orange in with my dark orange to create these little, almost, as I said, they're almost these little kind of orange slices on my pumpkin. And so the reason I'm doing this is to not have a flat pumpkin. I want to see these ridges in my pumpkin. So I'll just continue to do this. So I'll create another half moon with my orange on this other side, about maybe right here. And as you can see, I'm doing this all below where the stump is. I'm not touching the back of it yet. So I'm just going to continue making these half moon shapes. And I'll fill it in with my white and a little bit of orange in there too. So it's a lighter orange, and I'm just filling in this shape. And as I said, I'm just going to continue doing this process around the pumpkin. So far I have my middle, I have this one here, and I'm making this third one. So I'm blending the colors in the best that I can. So you can see that we have a variation between the light orange and the dark orange. So in the middle of these shapes, I'm making sure that I'm using my white so that you can see how light this color is. And so we're going to continue on as we complete this pumpkin. And so again, I'm going to make another curved line here with my orange, coming up from this stump and over towards the edge of our pumpkin actually. And I'll do the same thing on the other side as I finish these two. And I'll go ahead and fill those areas in again with my light orange. So I'm using a bit of white in there. And so the key is to make it look like that these are coming out from where the stump is. So we want to show that this pumpkin has a bit of texture on it. So you'll want to keep blending these colors together the best that you can as we fill in our pumpkin. And so again, I'm just going to continue on with these shapes, filling them in with this light orange. I'm trying my best to make sure that the colors behind it don't show through too terribly much. And so I'm going to then fill in the back, these last little pieces of our pumpkin. So that we have pretty much a pumpkin shape here. And so, as you can see, I've just created these nice little moon shapes all around the pumpkin. And all I've done here is just kind of outlined the pumpkin to make it a little bit bigger. Made a few more brush strokes around it. Okay.
Founded on the principles of person-centered care, Art to Wellness is designed by our ageing specialists to meet the home care needs of your loved ones through immersive and holistic programs. The Art to Wellness approach to successful ageing is made available to our community through our Painting with Mom complementary classes. This is our way of bringing families and community together through the arts while promoting personal self-well-being for all.
So we'll do the same exact thing for the mini pumpkin. I'm just going to start with the same shape that I did for the other one. I'm going to start with this kind of oval shape here. And so we have this nice oval shape in the front of the pumpkin. And again, you'll fill it in with that light orange. So a little bit of white mixed with a bit of orange. And you have these nice kind of highlights in your pumpkin. And so you'll just continue on with the mini pumpkin. So it's literally the same thing we did for the bigger one, just in miniature form. So I'll do the same thing. Create little orange slices, little half moons, and I'll fill them in with my light orange. And so as we do this, you can try to make this part a little bit thick so we don't want to see any of that background behind the pumpkin. Mine looks a little bit transparent, so I'll probably go over it a little bit before I'm done with these highlights and shadows that we've created. So I'll just continue on with these little moon shapes, these little curves, mostly with my orange, and then a little bit I'll fill them in with the white. So I'm still going on here with my pumpkins. And as you can see, they're looking more and more like actual pumpkins. You can start to see the actual shape coming through as we continue to make these curves in our pumpkins. And so, as I said, I want to make sure that my pumpkin is not transparent, so I'm probably going to go over it a little bit more. And so I'm just finishing up this last pumpkin over here, making sure that I have it looking nice and textured. And then what you can do is sort of fill in some of these really white areas. So on my pumpkin, you can see there's some really white areas, and what you can do is add a little bit of yellow into them actually, and that will help give it a bit of a more pumpkin-y look. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a second here. So as you can see, I'm just going over some of these areas that are maybe a bit too transparent for me. So I want this paint to be really thick. And I'm just going to start adding a little bit of yellow in there in just one moment as I'm finishing these up. So I'm trying to just blend these colors a little bit more, make them a little bit more orange. As I continue through this, I'm just adding more and more orange onto my pumpkin, kind of on these little creases that I've done. So these shapes that I've outlined, I'm just going over them a little bit more to get that orange color. And so again, I'm trying to just get my orange to be a little less transparent and a little more popping on the pumpkin. And so I'll continue this process just a little bit more, and then we'll start to do our yellow. Okay, so that looks about where I want it. And now what we'll do is we'll add a little bit of yellow into a few of these areas that are maybe a little too white for me. So I'm just adding a tiny bit of yellow in here. And after we do this, we're actually going to outline the pumpkin ridges themselves. So if they're not perfect, they will look much better after we add the outline. So I'm just adding, as I said, a little bit of yellow in my pumpkin just to give it a little bit of color to it. Because I don't want it to be too terribly white in there. I want it to be more of a yellow. Because mostly pumpkin highlights are more yellow than white. So I'm just adding a little bit more yellow. I'll probably put a little bit more yellow on my palette here. And And so you'll just want to get these highlights to be a bit more like yellow rather than white. Okay, so we'll continue this process just a little bit more, and this is really kind of up to you guys if you want your pumpkin to be a bit brighter, a bit more yellow, a bit more orange. You can kind of change it based on your preference. And so what we're trying to do is just get these highlights where we want them and get that orange to be on the full thing. And then the next step, as I said, we're actually going to outline some of our pumpkin ridges. So we're going to take our black paint and our small brush for this next part. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll take out my black paint and our small brush. So with this, as you can see in the original, we've done our pumpkin. We have maybe a little more shading to do on them, but we're going to do these black lines, which really give the pumpkin a bit more form to them. So I'll show you guys how to do that. So we're going to take our black and our small brush, and we're just going to outline the shapes that we created with the orange. So we're going to start with that nice oval shape, and really these are kind of just lines coming from the stump here. So I'll start with this, and I'll just continue going over these lines of my pumpkin. So a lot of them are curved, coming from the stump. So what you'll want to do is, as I said, really outline where those shapes are. And then this is a point where you can actually kind of detail the outline of your stump as well. So I'm going to make mine a little bit pointed down here. And then the next part that we're going to do is the same thing on our miniature pumpkin. So I'm just going to make these lines coming from the stump. So I'm outlining them here.
Could you mute people again, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem. Okay. Let me mute everyone here. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we're just continuing these black lines, which are outlining the shapes that we created earlier. So I'll just continue on as we do our pumpkin like this. And so these are our pumpkins for now. So as you can see, you can really see these lines now outlining the shapes of our pumpkin. And so what we'll do is we'll just add a little bit of shading into it, and then just a few more details as far as the greenery with the pumpkins. So this is the part that really actually makes the orange pop, is the green leaves behind it. So we'll just add a little bit of shading to the pumpkin, and this part is totally optional. So this will be just a little bit of your brown mixed with your orange. And so that will create a color similar to this one. So you'll want to mix your brown with your orange,
would you mind decreasing it a little bit fast? I don't know if other people feel the same way.
Yeah, I can slow down. Absolutely. So I'll just show you kind of what we've done so far, which this is pretty much the foreground for our painting. So we have our two pumpkins, which is really just two circle images, and we've colored them in with a bit of shading here. So I've done some kind of medium orange outlining the shapes here, and we filled them in with some light orange as well, which is really just white and orange mixed together. So after you have that kind of highlight and shadow, what you do is you outline those shapes with black. So I've done a black outline over the shapes that we've created earlier. And so really I've just filled in the pumpkin with a little bit of really more of just highlights at this point. So we've done the white and the yellow as the highlights, and what we'll do is we'll actually add some shadows onto this. So if it looks too bright and too much like almost like a yellow orange pumpkin, we'll add some shadows onto it in just a second. But I think these black lines are really important to just show the shape of the pumpkin. So I'll give you guys a second to catch up to this. As you can see, we've done a lot with our big pumpkin and our little pumpkin. So I'll give you guys just a second to catch up. And then what we can do is add a little bit of shadows onto our pumpkin to give them that little burnt orange feeling. You'll want it to be a little bit darker than this. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this up for you guys so you can see the details of the shading and the background that we've done here. And it takes some kind of thick paint to go over our already made background. So keep that in mind as you guys are filling in the shapes. It does take quite a lot of paint. So you'll want to put as much of that orange, as much as that white on as you can. And then it should fill in and be less transparent than, as you can see, mine's looking a little bit transparent here by the bottom of it. So you'll just want to add as much paint as you can. So for the next step, for anybody ready to go, I'll hold this up just to help anybody who's catching up. But what we'll do is we'll add a little bit of brown into our orange. And so to do this, you'll just want to mix the colors together about equally. And that should make a darker orange for you. So it's almost like a hair color almost. It looks like a brownish orange. So you'll want to make that color for the next step. And I'm probably going to use the same brush that I was using to fill in the color. So about a medium square brush. So I'll hold this up just for a little bit longer for anybody catching up. And then we'll go ahead and put some shadows, and we'll do just a few details on our pumpkins. They should start to really come to life. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get my orange and brown mixed together. So it should be, as I said, a bit like a hair color. So you'll want it to be bit like this color. So this is my normal orange and this is the dark orange that I've created. So I just put a little bit of brown into it and I mixed it with my already made orange. So I'll just use probably, as I said, a medium-sized brush. And I'm going to take this color and make just a little bit of shadows. And I'll start at the top of where my pumpkin is starting. So right where that stump is touching. And I'll just make some shadows coming kind of along the edges of my shapes. And so this is actually totally optional. If you like the color of your pumpkin, by all means, you can skip this step. For me, mine's looking a little bit too light, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of color to them. And so I'm just putting a bit of shading in there. And so I'm just putting some streaks at the top and maybe a little bit throughout this pumpkin to give it that nice burnt kind of shadow. So I'll do this throughout my pumpkins just to give them, as I said, we have it very highlighted right now, so we have a lot of white and yellow in it. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a brown in there too. So as you can see, it really helps make those highlights pop and it helps bring that pumpkin a little bit more to life. So I'll continue doing this. I'm just gonna add a few. So from the top, coming down, I'm just adding a few of these shadows in here. So as you can see, they're looking a bit more spooky at this point, which is very good. Looking a little bit darker, a little bit more shaded. And so I've done these shadows in two parts. I've done them up top and I've also done them toward the bottom of my pumpkin. And so I'm not covering up the whole thing with these shadows. I'm just doing a few every so often. And as I said, this part is really entirely optional. So if you like the color of your pumpkin, if you think it's just orange enough for you, then really you can absolutely leave it. I like to just add a little bit of dark to my pumpkin because I know I added a lot of white and a lot of yellow before and I want to contrast it a little bit. So at this point, I'm just detailing the inside of my pumpkin, adding those shadows in there. I'll give you guys a second to catch up with this part. And then we will continue with two very small details, which is the greenery. And we'll maybe do one more highlight in there and then we should be pretty much done with our pumpkins. So this is the time right here where you can kind of go over areas of your pumpkin that need a little work. You can blend in some colors if you would like. So I'm going to add just a little more of a shadow here. Then we should be about ready. So I will leave this sitting here for you guys. And what we'll do is we will get out, actually we'll do one more thing with our burnt orange here, so our brown orange. And then we'll continue on to make our green. Okay, so the next part that we'll do, we'll take our orange brown, so the one that we just made for the shadows, and we're actually just going to make one small line in each of the stumps. So I'll start with the first. We'll just make one small line here on the stump. And we'll make one more on the other stump. So these are actually just little highlights on the stumps. So I'll show you kind of a close-up image of what they look like. So I've just created one line here on the stump and another line on this stump. So I'm using that same orange brown that I just finished using for our highlights or our shadows on our pumpkin. And so I've just created a few lines for the stump to make it a little bit more realistic. We just want to add a little bit of a highlight on there. And so I'll hold this up for you guys. The next step of what we're going to do is going to be all of the greenery. So we're going to add some yellow and our blue together to create that nice, almost like a tree green color. And if you already have one, by all means you can use it. So I actually don't have any green. So what I'll be doing is mixing together both yellow and blue. And I'll make my own green. So I'll go ahead and do that. And that way we can make our nice greenery around our pumpkins. So as I said, making green is really just blue and yellow. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so for this next step, I'm probably going to use, again, a medium brush. So I'll rinse out the brush that I have, and I will get started here. So I'm just going to mix together my blue and my yellow. And this is one where you will want to use a lot of yellow when you mix these together. So as you can see, I'm mixing my blue and my yellow together to get this nice green color. So I want to continue mixing this up so that we can create our last little details here. So again, I'll show you guys what we have. So we have just our pumpkins, we have our black lines outlining some of these shapes that we've created. And now I'll show you the final as well. So we will be making these nice green details here. So we have a lot of these kind of green leaves coming from the stem, and then we have also grass beneath the pumpkins. So we'll get started. So let's mix together our yellow and our blue to create, really what we want is a nice tree green color. So I will create that here, and it's about, I'll show you the color that the goal is, which is this one here. So you'll want it to be not too blue, not too yellow, just really right in between. So that's the color here. And so we'll start by doing these nice green leaves coming from the stem. So what we'll do is they're really just squiggly lines, creating a loop as well. So what we'll do is we'll create this nice loop here. I'll hold that up for you guys so you can copy it. So it's almost like a ribbon, like a ribbon that you would pin on someone. So it's got that nice loop at the top. Nice. And then we'll continue on the other side. We'll do a nice green loop. It's the same thing. Another green loop. And it almost looks like a ribbon of some sort. And so we'll do the same thing for the other pumpkin. I'm going to create another green squiggly loop here. And then on the other side of our little pumpkin, we'll do the same thing. So another squiggly, curvy loop. And so the next thing we're going to do, and this is the next, or actually the last area that we're going to paint. So we are going to create some grass at the bottom of our painting. So we'll start with using the same green that we use, and we're just going to create 3 chunks of grass. So I'll create some vertical lines coming from the bottom of the canvas, and we'll just do a few grass lines at the side of the pumpkin. I'm going to do a few more in the middle between the pumpkins, just like this. Then I'll do a few more on the other side. So I'll do some more grass lines here. And so note that my grass is not facing strictly upward. It's actually going all sorts of directions. So some of them are going to the left, some of them are going to the right, but they're a little bit sloppy of where they are. So this is the start of our grass, and we'll do just one more color of green on top of them. And so for this next part, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow into my green to give it a bit of a lighter color. So I'm just adding a little bit more yellow into my green to make it quite a lot lighter. And you might need a big chunk of yellow actually to really see a change in color. You can even add a little bit of white into your green if you want to make it even lighter. And I'm going to go over these grass strokes with my light green too. So it'll look a bit like this. Then I'll do the same thing here. And I'll do the same thing in this last part too. So as you can see, I don't want to completely cover up that dark green that we used, but I do want to just layer it a little bit so that you can see the contrast of colors of green here. And so the other thing you can do with your light green is, this is also totally optional, but just detail your little swirls here. And so I'll kind of zoom in to show you guys. And so after you've detailed your grass, after you've detailed your little swirls, which that again is totally optional, I just thought that looked a little bit pretty, then you're pretty much done with your painting. So you'll want to just make sure that you have these nice green swirls coming out of your pumpkins. You want to make sure you have the grass done. And once you're done with the green, then you can kind of show us all what you've created. So you can hold up your masterpiece for us as soon as you're ready. I don't want to rush anybody, so if you're still working, definitely continue on. But I'd love to see what you guys have created during this class. Nice, Amber, looks good. And you guys can turn on your mics and turn on your videos. Nice job, you guys. Wow, incredible. And we have so many people this time that we have to actually switch. Let's see, nice. Wow, some of these are so good. Oh my gosh. Penny, looks great. Good job. Wow. These are awesome. Awesome.
I decided to put animals in all my paintings.
Yeah, no, they always look great. Penny, they look so good. Nancy looks awesome. Good job. Nice. They all look so wonderful. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Penny, looks great. Oh, thank you.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. They look so fantastic. Wow. Okay, so let's all hold them up. So I'll basically say 1, 2, 3, Painting with Mom. And we'll hold them up and I'll take a nice little snapshot here. So actually I'm gonna get Jillian. Jillian's been in here doing it with me. So we have 2. Great, okay, 1, 2, 3. Painting with Mom. Nice, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, they all look so fabulous, you guys. I'm so proud. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You guys did an amazing job. I know I went kind of fast that time, but you guys kept up. So good job. And I will be back on in 2 Saturdays, and we have our other class on next Saturday. So please continue getting on. I love doing this. It's so much fun for me, and I hope it's so much fun for you guys too. It's always a great way to start your Saturday. So enjoy the rest of your day, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.